Hey everybody, it's Mike with this old hot rod, and it's time to build shifter linkage. You can see this shifter linkage, it's a little thin, so I don't know if I'm going to use that. I may use the fittings. However, a box of shifter linkage to pull from. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to figure out something. Join me, will you? Bow, 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 bow. Alright, so you can see what I've got already set up. So I have the shifter set in place, bolted to the transmission. I notched out this box tube here, so I'll have to fill these ends. I'll do that after the fact. But what I need to do is figure out which linkage does which shift pattern. So one of them is first and second, which I believe is the front one. On my GM transmission, it's first, second, third, fourth, and then reverse. However, I feel like reverse and third and fourth may be switched on this transmission, but I don't know for sure yet. So what I need to do is figure out the shift pattern. Well, I know what the shift pattern is. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, but as far as the linkage goes, I need to be able to connect the right shift arm or the tab off the bottom of the shifter to the correct shift linkage. So, assuming that this is reverse, I want to start with reverse first. And the reason I want to start with the reverse one, because it's the furthest tab in on the shifter, on the bottom of the shifter. I don't want to build first gear, then first and second, and then third and fourth, and then have to finagle my reverse gear in between those or behind those. I'd rather start first with my reverse and then build outwards. I've done this once before. It wasn't terribly difficult, but it's very time consuming. So I figure you gotta start somewhere, and this is one of the last main things that I need to do, and one of the last main things that are very time consuming. That's why I've kind of dragged my feet on it, to be honest with you. So let's get to work and get some linkage laid out. Alright, so what I'm working on first is basically the path of least resistance. And what I mean by that is I am trying to find linkage rods that already exist in this box that I can basically just adjust and mount on the car. I believe I may have found the first one that might fit. It appears that it's going to fit. So there's these little spacers, these little collars. I got to order a set. They sell them at Summit. The first one, which I wasn't planning on going this route first, but with just a very little bit of adjustment, this one might fit. It's hitting here on this tab, so it isn't going to quite work out the way I want. But if I were to adjust it, if I were to extend this out and then take this, heat it, and bend it up, bend this up here and bring it up and above this tab, I could get it to, I could get that to fit with no problem at all. But again, right here it is hitting. Lengthwise it's perfect. Shape-wise it's not quite perfect yet. This linkage is a little thinner than some of the other pieces that I have to use. I think at the end of the day I'm not going to be abusing this car, so I should be able to get away with a little bit thinner linkage. This one will be a little long. I'm trying not to cut any if I don't have. Well, I know I'm going to have to cut some, but I'm trying to do as little as I have to. Obviously you want to make it so when they're moving past one another they're not going to hit or rub. So I feel like if I took this one being about the same length may work. The only downfall is I don't have much adjustment here, so I may end up having to cut it. Try to tuck that in, heat it here, bend it again, and bring it right back to the shifter. I think that one will work for my third and fourth gear, as long as it's okay to run the tab upside down. If it's not okay to run that tab upside down, then I got to flip it back up And because what's going to happen is that will actually reverse the pattern. Let's just say it was up, and when you push the shifter forwards, this tab would go backwards to 3rd gear. When you pull the shifter back, it would go forwards to 4th gear. With it being down, it's opposite. So going into 3rd gear would actually be putting it into 4th, maybe. So I need to do some research to figure out if I can run that tab pointing down or not. I saw some photos online where the tab is down, and then I saw some photos where the tab's up. So I need to kind of get to the bottom of that to figure out what the deal is with that, and then basically I need to reshape that 1st and 2nd gear and reshape the 3rd and 4th, and then figure out something for my reverse. There's not lots of space in between these. Sometimes for these, this I don't know what you call it, threaded post. This post where the tab for the shifter actually sits through the shifter tab. There's not a lot of space between these bottom tabs. Like on this one here, this being a 3-speed shifter, you have a lot more room here. With a 4-speed, these are a lot closer. And the 3rd one's here for your reverse. This is like just an Indy. This came out of a General Motors car or a truck, I believe. Like I said, I didn't plan on starting with my 1st gear yet, but so I need to clearance my reverse shifter tab. So I'm going to bend it here that way, and then bend it back this way here. So that'll move it back closer to the transmission box. It should go behind that. Either that or over it, actually. It may go over that, because I may need to run my reverse linkage behind this, like so. You can't really cross over. I could cross under, but depending on where this shifter linkage is going to be, I may need to do this one first. That's not long enough either. Alright, so these two are out. This one's out. This one's out. Let me grab some welding wire and try to create it with welding wire to get a basic idea. You ever seen those infomercials or commercials where, like on Facebook and social media, where it's like an aluminum product that they're using with a little mini torch, and they like punch a hole in the bottom of a soda can and then fill it in? That's what this rod is. I actually bought some. I used it to fix, it's like basically a thick soldering rod. I used it to fix a couple radiators. So I grabbed a piece of this, which I had in my garage, and I'm going to make some quick measurements. The stuff bends beautifully. I want to run it a little long to create, you know, that type of a situation right there where I have the threads on the end. So I'm going to run it a little long and bend it at the same bend that's at. Kind of guess, to be honest with you. And then I need to bend it this way. And then, no more indent. This way. Now obviously I can tweak this with the torch. I think that's pretty good. I'm going to kind of make a little mark on there as to where the little post is gonna end up. So this one's about right in the middle. That's my adjustment. That's my threaded adjustment on the shifter. On the transmission, there is no adjustment on this end, unless I were to weld on another threaded end. So basically this here has got to bend 90 degrees. Grab something to snip this off with. So we just cut that off, get that set in place like that. I'd say that would probably work pretty good. It'll certainly, the only question will be whether or not it's going to clearance the back of the transmission or not. It's up, actually it's going to go backwards. Reverse. Alright, so that's my reverse. So being in neutral is all the way forwards. So that's pretty good. I need to create a shift linkage that looks like that. I'm going to set that to the side for right now and figure out which linkage I'm going to use. And doing that, I'm going to start here. I'm going to start here on my end with my marker, I'll mimic where my bends are. I'm just going to follow it up and keep my bend at each marked point and see if I have enough rod to do this. It looks like I do. So this post is going to be right there. So I actually got to thread this out about 1/4 of an inch. And I should have enough out of this one post. This is essentially what I did on my 30 Coupe when I built the linkage out of on my 30 Coupe. I'd gone to an old junkyard close to me that was closed down, and I purchased 7. Just happened to find them in the back of a tractor trailer truck. I purchased 7 shifters, some complete, some just shifter bodies, and some just the, you know, linkage. Bought a whole box of stuff. I used that to build the linkage on my coupe. It worked out great. So now what I need to do is mimic this with this. So I'm going to go over the table. I'm going to get this thing all heated up and bent and see if I can get it put in the car. And then I'll be on my... So it's going to make my marks again just so I know which way things have to get bent. So I'm going to mark that. All right, let me get this unthreaded first. I don't want to run into any issues with that being in the wrong place when it comes time to take it apart. What the heck? I'm gonna hit that with a wire wheel. It's going, but it's not pretty. I'm gonna get my first bend up that way. I'm gonna be able to see this as I'm bending. Playing with fire! A little high. Alright, so I got my next mark here that needs to come down more or less level. So pretty close. For my next trick, I have to bend it here, right? That, and this one's gonna have to come this way. Then we'll let it cool and get it put in the car. And that'll be my reverse. Hello! Don't you just love this stuff? I love it. Gonna get it nice and red. Give me a little bit of working time, you know. Gotta go a little more. Yeah, I think I'm a little off. Yeah, I'm off on this one. I think if I would have bent this one, these two angles will be corrected. So we're gonna heat that up real quick and bend that. I need to go this way. I think I'm pretty close. I think if anything I can maybe just tweak it a little bit in the vise. This linkage actually looks like it's been cut before. Looks like someone might have modified it in the past. It's going to run this all the way out, clean the threads before it cools off, and then run it back in. Make my life easy when it comes time to adjust it. It's starting to cool off now, you hear it? Sorry, I don't smoke. Ooh, saucy. Oh, she's a binding up. It's cooling down. I should have taken the thing right off, I guess. I gotta put some grease or something on it. It's a nice cloud layer in here now. To find something to put some grease on with. Just for packing my front wheel bearings, trailer bearings. I don't know how effective that's going to be with it being hot, but see if I can get this fitting to run out again. Now with some grease on there. Yeah, here we go. I don't want to take it all the way off because I don't want it to be a pain in the butt getting it back on. Now I'm not saying you should use steel wool to do this, but that's all I had and it seems to actually be working. It's a piece on the table. I don't know. It's going on there nice now. Hey, whatever makes your life easy, right? So the good part about this is there's only 3 pieces of linkage. And that's one of them. So I'm a third of the way done. I could be shifting through the gears by the end of the day. That would be something special. From what I know, at least from when George owned the car and then Walter Ash owned the car, this car's never been a standard. It's always been an automatic. Could have most likely, I mean obviously it was a standard when it was new because it was a 3-speed. Like I had said in an earlier video, I think, and I told other people this, I am under the impression that this was actually a hot rod before George made it into a hot rod. There is a lot of older work that appears to have been done at some point in time before what I believe George built for a car and covered it up. You know, when George built the car, he covered up whatever work was done before, just like I'm covering up. You know, by changing things, you essentially cover up the past. And I'm fairly certain that George had covered up some past hot rod history, not new, you know, not being a new car, being an actual hot rod. I think he covered up some history. As you all know, I know from 1962 and up. And that's more than most people know about what the cars that they're driving. So that is my first piece of shift linkage for the transmission. I'm sure I'm going to have to modify it some, but that's more or less the shape I need. So let's go see if it fits. Now it's going to be a little difficult for me to put this in without blocking. Alright, so the adjustment goes on the shifter. I'm going to make sure the shifter is centered. Actually, you know what, let me get that in there first. Is this not fitting in here? Alright everyone, so I ended up switching out the shifter rod because I ended up having it on the wrong one. This was actually first and second gear. The middle one, like I thought it was reverse. But originally I thought the front one was first and second, but it's not, it's the back one. That's known as their speed shift linkage. So it's more direct for first and second gear, I guess, according to online. The outside tab on the bottom of the shifter goes all the way to the third and fourth, and the furthest inside, which I knew, goes to the reverse, which is actually this middle tab, and it is flipped back around so the tab is facing up instead of down. So I reversed this, flipped it back up, found a shift linkage rod that was the right length, adjusted the nut on the end, got it to fit. So my first and second gear is done. So as of right now, I got the screwdriver in, I can shift through the first and second gear. So now what I'm working on is my third and fourth gear shift linkage rod. Need to get this end heated up like I did on the last one because it's kind of stuck on the threads from sitting for so long. So need to get that heated up and loosened so I can then adjust it and then finish bending this rod. Down. Just want to try to clean these threads like I did on the last one so I can adjust it easier when it's in the car. To adjust this out further than it was because I need to kind of go up and over the reverse arm or the reverse linkage rod. I jumped online and kind of saw how the diagram was on that transmission, assuming that's the right shifter for it. I'm pretty sure it is, so I'm hoping I'm building it right. That's probably pretty good. I want to get it about ½ inch sticking out of that bung or whatever you call it. Sticking out about ½ inch, something like that. Now, fit it back in the car and figure out how I have to shape it. Take off my cool shades. Okay, so this being the third and fourth gear, it needs to go up, it needs to run uphill, and then it has to flatten out somewhere around the back of the box, and then come straight across and then drop down into that hole. So that being said, I'm gonna add to this bend right here and sweep it down just a little bit. Alright, so now what I need to do is I need to roll right at the end here. I need to roll this down, and that's where it's going to drop down and meet the shift linkage. Third and fourth gear. So I'm going to get that in the vise, fire up my torch and get that bent. You want to raise it up some. Possibly something like that. Gonna go give it a quick trial fit. Let's see. It's still real hot. So I was able to get the shifter linkage rods built so far for the first and second gear, which is the short one, and third and fourth gear, which is the long. Whoo, it's still warm. So you'll see how things are supposed to work. That's first gear. This third post here, that's back, is first gear. Second gear, third gear, fourth gear. So I got all four forward gears right now. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now what I need to do is build my reverse linkage rod. So basically I'm doing this exactly backwards how I wanted to do it originally, which was build the reverse rod first because it's the furthest one away. But Yeah, it's just the way things go sometimes, you know? So this one's going to go behind both of the other shift linkages. So what I need to do is turn this car around. Don't mind my singing. Alright, I'm going to end up having to cut this one if I were to use this linkage one. Watch the paint! I'm going to do the wire trick. That aluminum wire trick. I shall return. I'm going to shut the camera off and get some metal wire bent up so I can figure out exactly how this reverse linkage rod has to go. And then I'll find one that will be a good donor, and I'll get it cut, heat, and bent and make it what it needs to be. See you soon. Alright, so I got some welding rod here. I don't know what kind it is. It might be stainless. Some TIG rod. So it might be a little harder to bend, but I think it'll get the job done. Just have to make sure it's not going to interfere with my first and second gear, so I need to keep it high enough. So what I'm trying to do is kind of follow the shape of the back of the transmission. I feel like it needs to come up a little bit here and then bend down to kind of raise it up over the first and second gear like that. I'm trying to split the difference between these two shift linkage rods, about a ½ inch in between all of them. So as of right there, what an exciting video I'm doing, huh? What do you think? Alright, so I figured out if I take my vice grips and I clamp them on the end of that wire and hold it tight inside the hole, it kind of centers that wire. So now what I'm going to do is try to reshape this wire so it clears the first and second gear shift linkage. So what I need to do is, it's hard to do with my left hand. There we go. That's reverse. And then that's reverse. And that is damn close. Alright, so that's all the way in reverse, all the way backwards. I have complete clearance. Move that back into the neutral position, which is there. It's not how it came from the factory, but nothing is how it came from the factory on this thing. Now I just gotta find a rod that's long enough. I'm gonna do the same thing I did earlier. More or less kind of follow this piece of wire down this shift rod. It's pretty close. I got some extra 3/8 of an inch of room at the end of this linkage rod. You see what this one is? This one actually may be a little bit better. Yeah, I think this one's actually a lot better. So maybe you use this one. Alright, let's go over to my drawing board. Now what I want to do, make sure that thing's straight. And then, no, I don't want to do that. To make sure it's sideways, as if it were in the transmission. Hello! Alright, so I need to start going up about here. Yeah, I need to start sweeping up. I'm going to straighten these bends out. Yeah. I think that's kind of what's throwing me off. Gonna be a hot one. Don't touch it. Alright, so this is gonna go that way. The whole thing's gonna go that way. Alright, so this is gonna go up. And it's this whole thing from here. So from here is going to go up. I don't know how that's going to work, but I'm going to let it cool off for a little bit and try to get it on the car. That's the last shifter linkage that I need to heat and bend or build. You know, come to think of it, I just built, if this works, I just built all 3 shifter linkages without having to cut or weld anything. I'll drink to that. That's a win in my book. You know, usually last time I was cutting these ends off and grinding them to a point, welding them. So if I just had to heat and bend a few things to get these to work out on all 3, that's a pretty good night. So, fingers crossed, this will work. It doesn't look all that pretty. This one's pretty well bent up, but that's what I needed to do to get it done. Alright, so I'm going to give everybody a real quick rundown of what I ended up doing. So I spent about the last 20-30 minutes fine-tuning the adjustments on the back of the shift linkage arms or the rods. So what you need to do is you need to make sure all the levers are perfectly vertical, all in line. Because the reason why, in order for the shifter to work properly, they all need to be in sync with one another. And the reason being is if the forward gears are not in the neutral position, you cannot put the car into reverse. So in order for the car to go in reverse, these shafts and the gears have to be lined up exactly the way they're supposed to be. And in order to do that, you set the shifter up with this screwdriver in. There's a notch on this side, there's a notch on the other side of the body, of the shifter body. This goes straight through all 3 linkage arms and then into the notch on the other side of the shifter body. At that point, what you do is you then make sure that all of your adjustments, all of these arms need to be right in a row. If you have to fight one or the other, let's just say the reverse rod it's kind of fighting, take the adjuster out, either back it off or tighten it up. In my case, I had to tighten it up some because the reverse shifter rod was too far back and it wasn't allowing me to get out of reverse to go into the forward gears. So in order to go out of reverse into the forward gears, I had to adjust that rod to make sure that this this rod here was fully forwards, bottomed out. So that way I know that I'm now able to shift my car into forward position, or forward gears. So at this point, everything's lined up the way it needs to be. And I should be, I haven't tried it yet, I should be able to shift through the gears. That's first gear. This is second gear. Third gear. Fourth gear. Nice and smooth, everything works good. Found my neutral. And then there's my reverse. So that's how it's supposed to work. It's working great. What I think I may do moving forwards is I'm probably going to bend this shifter, either this one particular or another shifter arm that I have. They're not all universal, I don't think. So what I may end up doing is bending this slightly over just to get it kind of more in the center of the transmission, in the center of the car. It's just a little close to my leg, or what will be my leg position when the time comes. But at this point now, it's the first time I've been able to, that's first, second, third, fourth. So that's the same thing I had to do on my 30 Coupe. The only difference on my 30 Coupe was I ended up cutting, I think, all 3 linkage rods, because I only had a few to work with. My buddy Pete sent me back with that box from his house one day when I picked up the transmission and the shifter and everything else. And he said, use what you need. It was nice that I didn't have to cut them. I was able to use 3 that were close or exactly the right length. And I was able to straighten them and heat them and rebend them and get them to work. So I'm pretty excited. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to order all new hardware for the shift linkage to make sure everything's nice and tight. Those plastic bushings, they don't last too long, they wear out. That's a successful night. I want to say thanks to everybody for following along. Hopefully, if you have ever ran into an issue of maybe your car's, you know, maybe it's a 3 or a 4 speed, doesn't matter if it's a Muncie or this I think is a Borg Warner T10. Essentially all those shifters are the same, the shifter bodies. You have to get everything in alignment in order for things to work right. So hopefully you guys, you learned something tonight. I don't necessarily produce these videos to teach people things, but that's something I've just figured out on my own at this point. No one's taught me that. It's something that you take with you and you carry on to each car that you build, if you decide to build cars like this or build 4-speed cars. Appreciate it, everyone. Thanks again for watching. I hope you guys are enjoying this as much as I am. The list is getting shorter, the days are getting longer, and I'm getting closer and closer each day to driving this car. Still a long ways to go, but every day it's a day closer. So I hope everybody has a good day. Appreciate you guys following along. Thanks again. Take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.